Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
So on this Wednesday, March 13th, I want to wish everyone a happy new year. Yes, the 2019 NFL season is officially underway. The new league year, and no, I thought about it, MJ, but no tuxes, no streamers, no champagne, nothing like that. But Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And you're referring to the new league year officially underway.
Yes.
Now, I want to say tomorrow teams have to get under their top 51 players, or in this case, 90 players. So you'll see some more roster moves in the next couple of days. Teams are releasing players or trying to trade them. So for the most part, I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. But the league new year has started.
Yes, it has certainly been a long time waiting, but what that means is, yes, free agency is underway. Signings can become official. Trades can become official. We'll get into all that here on this edition of Cards Cover 2. And with that, how about we take off here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, tell you what's on tap for this afternoon's show. A right tackle is in the fold. We'll talk about the Cardinals' latest roster move. Steve Keim explains when it comes to free agency, why is Arizona a destination? Also today, in case some of you might have missed it, Kyler Murray held his pro day, took the field. How'd he do? We'll discuss what we saw, and of course your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show here this afternoon. We do it every show, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And of course, a lot of questions about free agency and trades and what the Cardinals plan to do to right the wrong that was 2018. But all of that ahead. But first, the news of the day. And yes, the 2019 league year is now upon us. We are about 2 hours into it. Signings official, trades can become official, and teams are working with a salary cap of just over $188 million. And you talked about it as far as being compliant with that. It's the top 51 cap numbers for teams. And then, of course, as you get closer towards the season, it's 53 plus practice squad plus injured reserve. All of that, as far as the magic number for 2019, is $188.2 million. So a lot of money. It's about $10 million more than a year ago. And Cardinals, along with a lot of teams, with plenty of cap space with which to work here in the offseason.
Yeah, the first year they ever had the salary cap, I want to say probably early 90s. Maybe it was 92. It could be wrong. $34.5 million.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
Guys are getting contracts for that. Now, again, you got to be on the roster for at least 3 years.
And you've got to be a quality player.
And that's been the anticipation. And hopefully when we get to 2021, these TV contracts will be up. And we know that Fox really wants to control Thursday night in the NFL Network. So usually it goes up about $8 to $10 million per year, and that's been the case over the last few years.
Absolutely. So what is done here as we await the official word from the Cardinals on some of the free agent signings that has been reported? We can tell you that 2 moves have become official. One is the trade for right tackle Marcus Gilbert, and 2, tight end Jermaine Gresham has been released. We'll talk about the latter real quick because this is something we mentioned on Monday's show, because it was reported by ESPN's Adam Schefter that Gresham would be released after the league year had begun, and it is now a fact. One, great guy in that locker room, and when healthy, a very good player on the field, but coming off a torn Achilles in 2018 or 2017, at the end of 2017, his 2018 wasn't nearly as good as he or anyone wanted it, and when you have just over $8 million as far as what your cap hit was going to be and make $6 million, certainly just no room on the roster when you added a Charles Clay and you got Ricky Seals-Jones coming back and Darrell Daniels coming back. And as we talked about, this is a very deep draft class with tight end. Wouldn't surprise me if the Cardinals made a move in that direction as well.
Yeah, I really think the Week 17 Achilles injury affected him. Obviously, they missed his passion, his toughness, and, there were times when, he got those 15-yard penalties, but I think he was trying to do the right thing, sticking up for his teammates. But cap number wise, he didn't have the production. I think he had 9 catches last year, and he wasn't targeted a lot. We know that a lot of guys didn't have big numbers last year. So, hopefully for him, he's fully healed. Usually it takes you a year, whether it's an ACL, an Achilles. Some guys can come back a little bit sooner. But I think he'll land on his feet somewhere. But, again, well-respected in the locker room, and he'll be missed along with Antoine Bethea.
A very good guy to talk to in the locker room. Didn't like being on camera or quoted, but once you got him, if you got him, and it wasn't like he didn't or refused to speak, he just was one of those guys that just didn't like to do a lot of stuff. But once he did agree to it, or you got him real quick, he was, one, very engaging, and 2, didn't give you cliche stuff, but actually told you what was going on and actually helped you out as far as the X's and O's part of the offense.
Yeah, I think we talked to him a few times. He was supposed to come on the podcast.
Oh, he wanted to, yeah. When we announced the show, he goes, I want to be on the show.
And what else did he say?
Yeah, well...
It is on the internet, so we'd have to beep everything out. But he wanted to be. He
wanted a little freedom.
Yeah, he wanted to be unplugged and colorful.
Yes, absolutely. So wish Gresham all the best.
Yes.
We know he'll be somewhere in 2019. Now to the first official move of the 2019 season for the Cardinals, and that is Marcus Gilbert is now a member of the Arizona Cardinals. They acquired him from the Steelers for a 6th-round pick coming up in April's draft, and is number 207 for those that are keeping track. It is the first of the 4 compensatory picks that the Cardinals received. So instead of 11 draft picks, they now have 10. But bottom line, Cardinals now have worked to fix that offensive line, and right now have a right tackle in Marcus Gilbert.
Yeah, we talked about this in the offseason. You look at the guard position, and regardless of where Pugh lines up, we knew that was a need. And then they obviously were able to give up a 6th-round pick. It wasn't for the Bucs pick. It was a compensatory pick, as you mentioned, 207. Obviously a guy that's had a ton of starts. Sean Kugler has coached him. James Saxon, the running backs coach, has been with him. And normally, Craig, when you look at a right tackle, he may not have the feet as a left tackle, and that's the beauty of having a healthy DJ Humphries over there. Teams have a tendency to run the ball to that side a little bit more because you're going against maybe a linebacker that's not has the fast twitch to get off, or maybe a tight end or a right tackle can push him. So it makes sense that they're going to plug him in there. And then Corey Cunningham still is rehabbing. I think he could be your swing tackle. So they've created some depth there on the offensive line, especially at the tackle position. And at some point, they're probably going to have to draft one.
31 years old. He's played 88 games, started 87 of those. He certainly has had his share of injuries. He's only played 12 games the past 2 seasons. He's dealt with hamstring and knee issues, and then in 2017, he missed 4 games because he violated the league's policy on performance-enhancing drugs, so he faced a 4-game suspension. But from everything that I've read and heard and been told, when healthy, when on the field, he is a very, very, very good right tackle. It's just a matter of these injuries. You got to be available and be on the field, but certainly now a new lease on life, if you will, a new chapter for him coming to the Cardinals and reuniting with Kugler, who he had as his offensive line coach his first 2 seasons in the league.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Joe Barksdale. Obviously, he asked for his release, and he's a guy that made a little bit of money in his career, and he thought, 29 years old, maybe they would bring him back. But I got to say, though, I think when it comes to the evaluation of the offensive line, the guy is Sean Kugler, and the fact that he coached him there, so he has insight. We talked about the running backs coach, so he has insight when the way that David Johnson's going to try to run to that right side or up the middle and get to that second layer. So I like the fact that Sean Kugler is involved in these decisions, because I thought Barksdale would be on the radar, and another guy like Will Holden, I just don't think he's First of all, I just don't think he would fit in what they want to do up front. It's going to be, man-to-man, but also a zone blocking scheme, and you got to win one-on-one matchups, and sometimes he got thrown around. But he did help the team out last year when he was let go in New Orleans, came in here, and they needed a starter. But I think you're going to see a different tenacity and physicality, and it all starts up front. And I think really the guy you got to get a lot of credit to is Steve Keim for hiring, and Kingsbury for hiring Sean Kugler.
Well, when you look at what Gilbert is going to make this year, $4.9 million, and then what you look at what offensive linemen are making in free agency for 1 year Is he an answer for you at right tackle? Of course not. He's 31 years old. Maybe beyond 2019 you get another year or two, but you have Corey Cunningham, who you really liked, who was pressed into duty last season because of injuries, maybe not quite ready to be a full-time starter right now at right tackle, but he can be that swing guy and then learn from a Marcus Gilbert and bring him along to where he's perhaps that guy in 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year, midway through the season, Corey Cunningham said he was getting more reps, and that tells me they were getting ready to plug him in there, and they made a decision to shut down DJ Humphries, and then you had the situation at right tackle when they decided to cut Andre Smith. And so he got an opportunity to play, and I think, again, he's raw, okay? But you could see that he got better as time progressed, and I think it's something you can work with. But getting Kugler in there again, he'll get him up to speed if they have to, but for the main reason here is he provides some depth, and, he did play a little left tackles, which is encouraging because you don't want to start mixing and matching, moving Gilbert to left tackle because he has experience. You definitely want a healthy DJ Humphries over there.
Absolutely. For two more takes on Gilbert's acquisition, here are Darren Urban and Kyle Odegaard.
Well, the news is finally official. The Cardinals trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers to acquire right tackle Marcus Gilbert has officially gone through. The Cardinals have sent a 6th-round draft pick, their 207th overall. It was their comp pick, Kyle. So an extra 6th-round pick to get a guy that's been in this league for a while and has done a nice job at right tackle when he's been able to play.
Yeah, he's been a solid, talented guy. The big question is injury. He missed quite a few games last year with injury, has been in and out of the lineup, and that's obviously something the Cardinals have dealt with a lot on the offensive line. It's hard to know if a guy is injury prone or if it's just been bad luck because it's such a physical position. But if he can stay on the field, I think it'll be a serious upgrade at the position.
He does have history with offensive line coach Sean Kugler. He was with him at the first couple of years when Kugler was coaching the offensive line with the Steelers. And it's something that we expected from this team going forward. They were going to address the offensive line.
Yeah, I think Steve Keim made that clear. Everybody who saw Josh Rosen constantly under pressure last year realized that they needed some upgrades. There's some talent across the offensive line now. We're not going to know if they stay healthy until the regular season comes, but on paper, it's a talented group.
Appreciate that, guys, and more on Gilbert, a 2nd-round pick of the 2011 NFL Draft out of Florida. So now you've got bookends on that offensive line with a couple of Florida Gators, DJ Humphries on the left side and Gilbert now on the right side. And, Humphries is a little bit excited, went on Twitter and responded to Gilbert, who is also on Twitter. But the response was Swamp Homie Gil with 5 Gator emojis.
Very nice.
So swamp homie, I don't.
Well, it's a swamp in Florida where they play.
Term
right?
of endearment, I have no idea.
It's probably a Florida thing.
Florida thing. We'll have to ask.
Right, a gator thing.
Gator.
The swamp.
Gator thing.
Yeah,
I've never.
You don't see them chomping over there,
Yeah.
Hard to do on audio here.
That's true. Let's
see some sound effects.
Make sure they do their chomping on the field and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do on the tackle side.
Just maul the guy in front of you.
Exactly.
And then we'll decide that we'll call you maulers from the swamp.
Gilbert was with Kugler for his first 2 seasons, as I mentioned, 2011 and 2012, but then 5 seasons from 2014 to 2018 with now Cardinals running backs coach James Saxon. So that's 2 guys within the building that know Gilbert and know what he can do. But with regard to Kugler, last month when he and the rest of Kingsbury's coaching staff was introduced to the local media, Kugler talked about what he wanted to see from this offensive line as far as fixing it, and then also what he looks for in an offensive lineman.
First off, evaluating the guys in our own team and deciding which ones are the best fit moving forward, and then also comparing those guys to the free agents that are available in the market and make sure that we're keeping the right guys, and if somebody that can help us better than what we have, bringing those guys in, and then it turns to the draft, and then it's just really a constant evaluation process from there. Who's working the hardest, who fits, and again, that's in the NFL, that's a constant process. So the starting point is our own guys, and then also in free agency who can help us, and then move on from that point. We want to play physical. We want smart players. We want guys that are passionate about playing the game of football. I love coaching guys that love the game. I don't want guys that are not I want energy bringers, not guys that suck the life out of the room. I want guys that love coming to work every day and playing ball. And you can identify that if you go out and work these guys out and you meet them at the combine. You can tell the guys, and you can see it on film. So, the guys that are lazy, the guys that are trying to get by the short way, there ain't the type of guys that'll last here.
Passion for the game. It's what we hear from General Manager Steve Keim when he talks about the draft and finding those guys that love to play on Sundays, love to put in the work. It's easy to say it. It's another thing to actually find it and then make sure that you've got that guy that just doesn't, go through the motions. But, you're not playing for the love of the money, but for the love of the game. And I understand when you get paid, it's a little bit different, but it is a child sport. It's played by men, but you want to make sure that you are on that field because you want to, not because, hey, I can make X amount of millions of dollars doing this.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. I mean, they're motivated because a lot of these guys are good players, and they've been good players probably since high school to, obviously JV and varsity, and they got a scholarship, and they went to a big-time school. But again, either you're motivated to be great and leave a mark on this game. So in other words, you're motivated by the shield because you don't want to be good, you want to be great. Okay, and there's only X amount of Hall of Famers. Not saying that it's automatic. It's you got to work when no one's paying attention, when no one's looking. Are you out there grinding, doing what you're supposed to get better every day? You hear it all the time. Another thing when it comes to Gilbert, Mike Jurecki, best offensive line coach in football. Okay. Now, he dabbled around interviewing with the Broncos. The Cardinals wanted to interview him a couple of years ago, but he's the offensive line coach up there. He got a chance to work with Gilbert. I know Tom Cable gets a lot of credit because he's working for Gruden now, making $2 million a year, but I thought Mike Solari, who worked for the Cardinals in the past, did a really good job with the Seahawks. Coaching matters. He's going to teach these guys up. And just listen to him talk. It's not cliches. It's you come to work every day and you're going to work hard, and I'll notice if not. I would, if you're any player out there, you would love to play for this guy.
Oh, absolutely. And we knew the Cardinals are going to address offensive line in free agency and the draft. They've so far addressed it via trade. There are some reports out there that they're going to do it again via free agency. But, of course, come draft time, you would think at least one, maybe two. If you keep all 10 picks, it wouldn't surprise me if 3 offensive linemen get drafted just because of what Kugler said, finding guys that want to put in the work. And if they've evaluated their own guys and you don't think that they're quite ready or Kugler sees something in someone else, I think offensive line and even defensive line, that's going to be the heavy dominant as far as what this team looks for in the draft. And I'm talking all 3 days.
Yeah, I understand they got, I don't know if all 10 guys are going to make the
True.
roster. I would try to parlay all 3 of those 7th-round picks, including Mr. Relevant, maybe get back in the 5th round. Some teams only have 6 picks in the entire draft. That's the Browns. Now they've obviously have garnered the fruits of the fruits of the labor there from getting all these high picks and cap space. But I just think Mike Jurecki for him coaching him, that's going to go a long way. And then having Sean Kugler, him coming in and being the offensive line coach. Like I said, we can look at the hire of Cliff Kingsbury. We know he's innovative. Well, obviously he was hired to get the ball in the end zone. We look at the Vance Joseph hire where he's motivated to be a head coach again. He wants to get this team back to a top 10 defense, whether it's points allowed, stopping the run, top 5. But I think Kugler and Tom Clements, really good hires just based on experience. And it seems like Clements is more not as vocal, but when you talk to him, very smart, intelligent, give you deep answers. Kugler's a guy that you want to play for, and you can just see him. There's no cliches, like I said. So I'm excited about this staff because they have a lot more experience on it than the previous staff.
The acquisition of Marcus Gilbert, a solid first move for the Cardinals here upon the new league year. Now, if you want to go all the way back to the addition of Farrell Cooper, DJ Swearinger, this team has made several moves with regard to upgrading the roster in 2019. But as far as 2019 here, as far as when that calendar flips, the NFL calendar, Marcus Gilbert, step number 1.
Yeah, and you were talking about, hypothetically, we'll see because there are guys in the 7th round that may practice squad players. I mean, where'd they get Corey Cunningham last year in the 7th round at the University of Cincinnati? So I would think, maybe some of these small school guys that didn't have a pro day, did not and was invited to the combine, maybe you sign 3 or 4 of those guys to bring to camp because normally in camp, you have 10 to 15 offensive linemen, so you want to flood the position. But I anticipate they're going to work that undrafted free agent list, and they're going to get some guys that we have no idea, but they look the part. Now it's a matter of, can they coach them up and teach them up?
Well, look what is happening now in the NFL. Trent Brown, highest paid offensive lineman in the league. He was a 7th-round draft pick. Protected the blind side for the New England Patriots, and Tom Brady now cashed it in free agency.
Yeah, I mean, it's contract years. You look at Rodney Gunter. The thing is, we haven't seen a lot of his name out there. Doesn't mean something's going to happen. I know Trey Boston said that he's waiting for the second or third wave, maybe the Raiders, but they obviously drafted a young safety last year, and they went out and signed LaMarcus Joyner from the Rams. So interesting to see how this unfolds. But again, we talked about this. We thought they would address, at least on paper, possibly offensive line. We could check the right tackle, and then obviously you want to get an inside linebacker, wide receiver. So you can't do everything in one day, but obviously they're working to do that. And then we'll just see what they do in the draft. And listen, I always say judge the roster in week 1, because with them having the first waiver claim, everyone that is waived, they have a choice to bring in. So I wouldn't get comfortable if you make that first 53, because I think they want to turn the bottom of the roster over.
Well, and that's what Keim has done historically here with the Cardinals. And
I think it speaks volumes, Craig. They had 14 free agents, and right now only one guy was retained, and that was Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean some guys won't come back. That go out there and test the waters, find what you're worth. I don't know if they'll give the Cardinals not so much a discount, but a chance to match the offer. But that's telling to me that, and we're talking about household names, from Bethea and Gresham, and you throw in Buchanan,
Marcus Golden.
Exactly. So there's some household names, guys that have been here, but that just goes to show you they want to get better at certain positions.
And bringing up as far as the Cardinals' needs here, it's something we talked with General Manager Steve Keim back in Indianapolis at the Combine, getting his thoughts leading into free agency. Pay attention to what he says, and then we'll talk about what the Cardinals have already done since then.
I think there's a number of the spots that we have needs, and it goes anywhere from linebacker to outside receiver to obviously offensive line. So we're going to try to address a number of those spots through free agency, but we want to be smart and calculated with the plan. You don't want to go out and just throw a lot of money and guarantee contracts at people who don't deserve it. So you got to make sure the market and the player fit what you want to build.
I like the fact that, obviously, when you're getting a $60, $70, $80 million deal, you got to spread that out. Now, who knows if Landon Collins is going to be there for 6 years with the Redskins? Now, it's probably exciting for them. But for the most part, you start looking at it. Cardinals, at least Robert Alford, 3-year deal.
Correct.
Brooks Reed, 1-year deal.
Charles Clay was 1 year.
1-year deal. And then you look at the trade, who's got 1 year left on his contract. So maybe it has something to do with the CBA, but just a year ago, the Cardinals brought in Andre Smith. I want to say it was a 2-year deal, and then they gave Pugh a 5-year deal. Now, when Upati was a free agent, they gave him a 5-year deal, and he was making the Pro Bowl like the first 3 years. So it's interesting just to see, when it comes to contracts. Now, clearly, if you're going to get a 3-year deal, you can get out of it after a couple of years, not a major hit. You give a 5-year deal, and it's going to cost you a lot of dead money. So I'm just curious to see around the league. We're seeing a lot more shorter deals now. There was only maybe 5, and I thought Foles cashed in $22 million per year. He's the highest paid player. Some other guys are around 18 or 19, but we had a lot of guys sign 4-year deals for $52 to $55 million. Again, the Cardinals are going with 3 and 1 and 2-year deals.
Absolutely. And so far, they have just kind of scratched the surface with regard to free agency. And yes, money talks, but going back to our interview with Keim at the Combine, not only money, but Arizona is an attractive destination for a lot of these players.
We have a reputation of being an organization that is a place where you want to be. It's the weather, it's the fan base, it's all the things that come with living in Phoenix in that area. So there are a number of things we can sell. On top of the fact, Michael obviously allows us to do our job. He's an owner that gives us the resources we need, allows us to do our job, and is extremely supportive. And then, again, all the different things that come with the organization, to me is it puts us in a position where I felt like when I became the GM, we can recruit here. We can make a difference. It's a different place than getting off the plane somewhere else and it's 20 degrees. I mean, you get off the plane and it's sunshine and palm trees. What's there not to like?
Amen.
I like living here.
There are other teams in town. I'm not here to knock anybody because, obviously you like to win, but the Cardinals have never had an issue bringing free agents here. I mean, back in the day, maybe they didn't have the revenue streams and guys are coming out here for visits. But when Bruce Arians arrived here, I think it was Rashard Mendenhall and the Broncos wanted to bring him in. And Arians told him, you leave here, we're pulling the deal off the table. So the dynamics have changed. And when the Cardinals bring somebody in for a visit, especially on a free agent visit, they are serious. They've already had conversations with the agent, or they've already watched the film. Now they want to get to know the person, and then obviously I always think it comes down to fit, meaning role, and then asking price. That's as long as you can check those boxes, I think you'll be effective in free agency, regardless of the team. But we have a lot to sell here, especially one of the best stadiums when it comes to turf or real grass. You're going to play 8 games indoors, so to speak, unless they want to open it up for national games. And the travel on the West Coast is not as bad. I mean, LA's a 40-minute flight. Frisco's 2.5, maybe Seattle's 3.5. So there's some perks to it where guys don't look at that, but their families do.
Well, on a top-notch training facility as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And a practice bubble.
Yeah.
Which doesn't hurt.
No, and you're staying in a hotel in training camp, and then you're practicing indoors. We'll see how much that changes.
Yeah, certainly much more to come with regards to free agency. A lot of stuff been reported, and of course we'll keep an eye on it here on Cards Cover 2 and then bring it to you from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here, and of course broadcasting as we always do, and our Bose QC35s. Just go to Bose.com for more information. Still to come here on this Wednesday, we'll let the Bird Gang sound off. Still time to get your questions in using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show. Now, the start of the 2019 league year, not the only thing going on, and for a short period of time, it was kind of overshadowed, the start of free agency, by something that was going on in Oklahoma, and that was the fact that, Oklahoma held its pro day, which was otherwise referred to as the day Kyler Murray decided to pick up the football and throw in front of NFL personnel. There were several other players, though, that the NFL scouts and people that were there, I saw one report where there's over 65 NFL personnel and over 100 media members. All 32 teams were represented. But, yeah, Kyler Murray got the bulk of it. But let's not forget, you got a couple of offensive linemen in Cody Ford and Bobby Evans, wide receiver Marquise Brown, and running back Rodney Anderson. Now, not all of them were on the field, but it's certainly another opportunity to get a look at those guys. But the big story was Kyler Murray. And, yes, the Cardinals were there. No, Keim was not there. No, Cliff Kingsbury was not there. Not a big deal, in my opinion, because of a couple of reasons. One, start of free agency. There's some other things going on. Two, there were other pro days. There were about a half a dozen other pro days. Now, none at the level of Oklahoma, but Wisconsin held theirs today. And two, I don't know how much a owner, a general manager, or a head coach gains from a pro day when you have limited one-on-one interaction with the player. And two, when you're talking about a quarterback, you are throwing, basically it's a one-on-one drill.
Yeah, everything's scripted. He was 61 of 67, and normally when that happens, that I would say there's probably 5 or 6 drops. Now, he did airmail a couple, but
yes,
you could see just based on his short arms how fast he gets rid of the football. He can throw that out pattern, that where maybe a wide receiver does a 15-yard dig and comes back for the ball. Right on the money. He could throw across his body. Obviously, he's really good on the deep balls and the fly pattern. So for the most part, but it's scripted. So we talked about this. You're allowed to bring in 30 visits, and that excludes anybody who went to ASU, NAU, U of A, or played high school football here. So you're allowed to obviously go over 30. But there was a time when the Cardinals brass went to Blacksburg, Virginia. It was Michael. It was BA, it was Keim. I think maybe Freddie Kitchens was involved there. Maybe he was the quarterback's coach time. They worked out Logan Thomas, flew to Birmingham, Alabama to work out A.J. McCarron. And then a few years before that, they had worked out Blaine Gabbert. Mr. Bidwell was on that trip. So if you can't get 30 here, you go out and check them out. But getting Kyler Murray here for, 24 hours, they can bring him in, meet and greet. He can meet with the head coach. He can meet with the offensive coordinator. You could put him on the chalkboard. You go out and have dinner with him. You see his manners. I mean, there's so much you can gather. So I'm not surprised that they didn't send up. I mean, obviously, Steve and his staff is still working the phones to get guys to come in for visits, or in this case, trying to negotiate to get them on the plane to come here.
Well, and from all that I was able to gather via social media or just looking around the internet, there was only one general manager in attendance, and that was Panthers GM Marty Hurney, there were 2 head coaches, Zach Taylor with the Bengals, Pat Shurmur with the Giants, and a couple of offensive coordinators, Mike Shula, Giants, Ken Whisenhunt, Chargers. Other than that, and even watching it, I didn't see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of scouts, maybe some assistant coaches. So for me, yeah, people are going to read into who was, who wasn't there. To me, it doesn't bother me.
Well,
I don't care whatsoever.
Well, all the smoke about, John Gruden during this afternoon, they introduced Antonio Brown. So, you can't be at 2 places at once. Plus, they film it. You can get a copy. But go back to the tape, what he did at Oklahoma.
That is something that Keim always
Go
points
back to the tape.
Well,
you see how fast this guy is? He did weigh in at 205.
2 pounds lighter than he
2
weighed at
pounds.
the combine.
I'm okay with that.
Didn't measure, didn't
run his
height.
40. Is he ever going to run a 40 time the rest of his life instead of in a game?
Well, and for those that watched the pro day or didn't see it, about 99% of his passes were all dropbacks. He didn't show a lot of movement, not rolling out of the pocket,
you don't want to do that.
Move.
But I like the fact that even though they didn't have somebody snapping the ball, he did do snaps under center and a lot of play action, because that how that is. You got to put the ball in the belly of the running back, and you got to turn your back on the defense for a split second, and then you get the ball up. Hopefully they don't see it. But I did notice you're not going to have him run around in that situation. More of, can he take a snap from center? Can he go through his progressions? And can he deliver the ball on time? That's what you're looking for.
You still don't know if he can take
going
a snap
against
from
there.
Center. Exactly.
I know. Well, listen. I mean, Mason
What'd you
Cole,
say? It was 61 of 67?
Yeah, and a couple he sailed, and I know there were a couple of drops that I watched.
You should complete 90%
usually
of your passes in a pro day.
Usually a pro day, the ball never hits the ground.
It shouldn't.
I know.
Now, of course, if it drops because your receivers can't hang on, that's
right.
something different.
But he threw to his side, he airmailed, like I said. But for the most part, those are the guys that he's thrown to for the last 17 games, including the second half of Alabama. So you would think, and maybe they feel a little pressure because, granted, there were 65 personnel people there, scouts. You mentioned, a couple head coaches, Zach Taylor and Shurmur, and some offensive coordinators. So, listen, I'm glad Shurmur was there because the Giants now have the 6th overall pick, and they picked up 17 from the Browns. So the Giants have some wiggle room if they want to move up or if they want to sit at 6 and then try to move up from 17, whether it's Murray or, in this case, Haskins, Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State, who more fits the profile of a pocket passer, load up with the running game with Saquon Barkley. So I'm glad that Pat Shurmur was there. And it could be all just smokescreen, though.
So, of course. Look, it was fun, entertaining to watch, but I didn't learn anything more than I already knew about Kyler Murray.
I mean, you can go to YouTube and watch some highlights of them, just actual games. But I thought Todd McShay pointed out, and I think he was right on, he was there, just how fast that ball comes out of his hand. Like, it's no wind up, not going back 5 to 7 yards. No, he does have a tendency to drift, and he's gotten himself out of trouble at that level. I don't want to see him do it as much as this level. Throw the ball away, get out the hash marks, you don't get intentional grounding or loss it down. But the ball comes out of his hand so fast. And maybe that's the baseball angle.
Yeah, and look, nothing that happened today is going to diminish the talk with regards to Kyler Murray, the number 1 pick, whether it's the Cardinals or the Raiders, or you mentioned now the Giants because of their recent trade or trade of Odell Beckham, and now all of a sudden they've got extra draft picks as far as in that first round. It's a lot of fun. We still have over a month left.
43 days.
Are you keeping track? You
countdown.
I
just go to this website and they tell us every day. And they
like crossing off the numbers on the calendar.
Nope. I don't
turning the page.
No abacus, nothing.
Okay,
but
abacus.
They do like by hours and seconds, and I'm like, that's a little much. Just tell me what the day is. But they are giving a convenience for everyone out there that wants to know when the draft is.
April 25th, Thursday at, 5 o'clock our time.
Cardinals
here
on
in
the clock.
Arizona. They've been on the clock since December.
Oh, but the time is ticking there. We got 10 minutes.
That's a whole nother issue. That's just funny. You're on the clock, first round, first draft, first overall pick. It happens with every draft in every professional league. You take the full 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. It's just funny. You haven't made a decision yet?
And if there's a trade, then they kind of reset it, but the trade's already been made, so you could make the pick within the 10-minute span.
Well, that 10 minutes is for TV purposes only.
Sure. I don't like when they go to now we watch it here at the facility. They have a bunch of TVs for us, and we got some in here now, so this is good. But they usually go to break like when a local guy is going to get picked or something. Over the last few years, and we didn't know when Balaj was going to go, 3rd round to the Dolphins. Kalen Balaj, a couple years old, Jalen Strong and Brock Osweiler. But they always go to break.
The timing.
Yeah. Got to
Bad
pay
timing.
those. You got to get those
Yeah.
commercials in, Craig.
We continue here on Cards Cover 2, broadcasting from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center and doing so in our Bose QC35. Still to come, Bird Gang Sound Off, but right now I want to let you know that the latest episode of Cardinals Flight Plan debuts tomorrow, 6 p.m. on Facebook Watch and YouTube. It's titled Golden Ticket. Here's a sneak preview.
First, I want to start, guys, and thank everybody for their input the past few days. You know, over 21 years of doing this, it's continued to mold my philosophy on how we approach the college draft. And it starts with two things, guys. It's the heart and the mind. You can't get past that. If you don't love it enough, it'll finally catch up to you. And if you can't learn and process information, you guys won't trust them and put them in a position to play. Okay, so if they don't have those two things, it doesn't matter what physical tools they have. Okay, so again, that goes back to remind us as we get enamored with these players the next couple weeks and we see them jump high, run fast, do the 3-cone, and we just have to remind ourselves, guys, at 1 o'clock on Sunday, we don't run the 3-cone, okay? We have to think fast on our feet. And this is the most critical part of the process, in my opinion, is the combine, because it's our first access to these players.
Great access there. Kime's message to the coaching staff. Again, Cardinals Flight Plan, Facebook Watch, YouTube, and you can catch up on past episodes on azcardinals.com/flight plan. And not many teams, and I've said this repeatedly, whether in the NFL or other professional leagues, give you that kind of access when the general manager is up in front of a room, a large room, and addressing the entire coaching staff, scouting department, whomever, and basically letting you in on those conversations.
Yeah, fascinating. I've always enjoyed it. I always look forward to watching it, and really all or nothing. And then obviously Tim Delaney and his staff have carried it throughout the off season. And they don't have to release this content. I mean, the whole Amir Abdullah, and then they get David Johnson, the whole Josh Rosen last year. They're calling the Raiders. I mean, that's stuff you normally don't see because sometimes you didn't get Amir Abdullah, but you got David Johnson. It worked out. That's just the draft. But what he said there is so true. I mean, and he always talks about our needs in April and May. They're different in October and November, and I think that's why we're starting to see them turn that roster over at the bottom. I mean, when it's all said and done, they've acquired, whether it's waivers, free agency, or trade, they've acquired a handful of starters, guys that did not contribute at least to Week 16 last year, Farrell Cooper and then DJ Swearinger. So excited to see, that pie and how they divvy it up.
And based off of Kime and what we know, best player available.
With a little bit of a need.
Even if that player is a cornerback. I didn't say with number one.
They need a slot corner, but, we'll worry about that. Maybe one in the draft. But, we'll see. But the thing I like is they have options.
Yes.
They have cap space. They have high picks. We know that Kime's not afraid to trade. And he traded for Gilbert. He traded a couple years ago for Chandler Jones. He had a home run there. So I like the fact that there's options. And I always say there's 3 ways to build a roster. Draft, to me, that's the belly of your football team because you own the rights for 4 or 5 years. Free agency, plug-and-play guys that can start from day one, i.e. Robert Alford. And then you throw in Marcus Gilbert. And the other one is trades. And some teams, they don't want to release a player, but they want to get some compensation. And the Cardinals have wiggle room when you look at the 6th round and the 7th round with a total of 5 picks. So that's encouraging. So I like the fact that they have options. But picking in the top of each round until we get to the compensatory picks, that's where you got to hit the home runs.
Again, Cardinals Flight Plan Thursday at 6 p.m. And, of course, go to azcardinals.com/flight plan for all your past episodes. Really looking forward to tomorrow's episode. It drops at 6 o'clock. All right, with that, let's hear from the Bird Gang. What are they sounding off on here on this Wednesday afternoon?
No Instagram today, huh?
Apparently, most of social media, Facebook. Yeah.
Imagine if Twitter was down on the day they're announcing signings.
Appreciate those that
you
did
have to,
get through
You have
here.
to send smoke signals.
Hashtag Cards Cover 2. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. It's amazing what we did when we did not have the internet. And
yeah, actually, we went outside and played.
Yeah. Talked with people as opposed to texting. And,
yeah.
All right. Via Twitter, user wants to know, and kind of going back into history a little bit, based off our conversation about Kyler Murray, if Kingsbury didn't make those comments while at Texas Tech about Murray when he was about ready to play Texas Tech against Oklahoma. Is there still so much hype around Murray going number 1 overall? Seems like the rumor mill pushed him up the rankings.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. That's a good point on your part. He said it, though, so it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. But if he never said that, maybe people wouldn't connect the dots like we did when we got to the NFL Combine. I think that's a good point.
True, but I think with regards to a number 1 overall pick, and anytime there's a quarterback involved,
yes.
I think there will maybe not as much hype.
But you're talking
still
about
be
drafting a guy
about
in the top 10 last year, too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just the dynamics of it. But obviously he had a target on his back because he said it. And we all know conference calls, they pour on the syrup and sugar, and you're the best thing since sliced bread, and then they try to go out there and beat you and then shake your hand after the game. Good luck. Stay healthy the rest of the season.
Well, it is interesting that you're saying about the hype machine pushing up the rankings because I've seen.
But I think it still would have came up because he was going to be asked, hey, you're a new coach in the NFL. You run the air raid. Now there's concepts of the RPO. What do you think of Kyle Murray? You think he can succeed at this level? Maybe he wouldn't have been into depth where it was tough to play against him. But I just think he had the target because of the comments. And the comments were, to me, like, I wouldn't say meaningless, but they weren't bulletin board material. You're not saying this guy can't play. I can't see him playing in the NFL. That would have been a lot worse.
But you've seen, and I'm talking about not mock drafts, but just guys projecting their top 100 college prospects. There are a lot of them that don't have Kyler Murray in the top 10 or top 15. I'm just talking about talent.
Well,
not mock draft.
I stopped looking at mocks. I do look at Kuiper, McShay, Jeremiah, maybe even a guy like Dane Brugler from the Athletic. Because the Cardinals are picking first. I don't want to cloud my mind, but you're right. Todd McShay has him the 13th best player in the draft. You know he's got number 1? Bosa.
We'll see what happens again.
But you're right. I mean,
April 25th.
Because that's what teams do, Craig. Bob Ferguson taught me this a long time ago. Mike, don't worry about the teams. Just rank the players. Now, obviously, if the Giants picking at 6 and you got to find a quarterback and a pass rusher's there or a running back, they're not going to take them. So, again, a little bit of need. But just rank the players. And you're right. He's ranked 13th overall on one of them and 15th overall on the other one.
Back to your questions here via Twitter. Curious, this user wants to know, I'm curious to know, what about this offseason has stood out to you guys the most? And they also added this comment. I'll read it. Also, I'd like to personally thank you and the production team for always putting out content that is not only informative, but quality as well. So we'll give a shout out to @Beasley124. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah,
there's
listen, I like what we did. We didn't just turn the mics on, and we obviously had a plan, and I appreciate people tuning in. And if you miss it later, you can get back. We're going to be all over it. We're not going to speculate. We're going to deal with the truth here. And so we appreciate you following and watching.
What about the question? What has stood out to you the most about this offseason?
Just the excitement, because coming off a 3-13 season, just the excitement, trying to get it right, doing the right things, hiring the staff. Because I mean, we had some pillars here. I mean, these aren't speed bumps. Hiring a brand new head coach, no experience, bringing in the staff, and then still trying to add to the roster with guys getting released before the deadline. When the league office open up, so I would say excitement, motivation, and they want to get it right, and they want to get better. I think that's the bottom line that I'm seeing, at least initially in the last 6 weeks.
I'll go with the acquisitions of Alford, Reed, and Clay. 2 starters, potentially 3, depending on Reed. Is it going to be at least a rotational guy, but not wasting time?
What about Gilbert?
And those guys could have been, I'm talking about even before the new league year began. I mean, those guys could have waited. They could have waited.
We asked Robert Alford. He said no. And there's agents out there that tweet stuff, and I know they're talking to different clients, are like, why are you guys in a hurry? Just wait 2 more weeks. Well, guys got kids in school. They want to know where they're going to be in the summer. I mean, they got to move. It's not just, okay, I'm going to go to the highest bidder, which sometimes happens, but it's more thought out. And again, we had Robert Alford on. He did mention there was a recruiting part, whether it was Patrick Peterson, whether it was Marcus Robinson, the defensive backs coach, who we had him at the Senior Bowl. So I'm glad that they are able to check that box, because you'll be sitting here today telling me trade down and take Greedy Williams, cornerback, out of LSU. And you'd be right. But they already checked that box.
I'll just clip that part where he says you'd be right, and we'll just loop that and play it over and over again.
It's not happening, though.
Appreciate everyone sounding off. The Bird Gang sounding off here on this Wednesday edition of Cards Covered 2. We'll do it again on Friday. #Cards Covered 2. #Cards Covered 2 using the number 2 to get involved end the show. A lot happening around the Cardinals, a lot expected to happen still to come this week with all that is reported out there with regard to the newest players potentially wearing Cardinals uniform in 2019, and we'll bring it to you right here on Cards Covered 2. With that, I want to thank everyone behind the scenes for their work and effort putting this show together here on this Wednesday. Special thanks to Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, and Jackson Sipes. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. We'll talk to you on Friday here on Cards Covered 2.